Goshen Theater Drama Club members, artists, and friends and family and everybody tuning in. Welcome to Goshen Theater Drama Club Table Talks, episode 3. Joining us today, we have our quarantine queens, Miss Molly and Miss Katie. And our special guest today is Mr. Paul Regano, straight from New York, straight from the Broadway. Mr. Paul Regano. You all know me. I'm Miss Amber, and I am the managing director at Goshen Theater, also the executive producing director of the Drama Club. I did some theater, and I've done some directing, and there's been stuff, and I play music and make art, and that's my life. Let's introduce ourselves for those who are tuning in for the first time. Miss Katie?
Hello, I am Miss Katie. I'm an actress. I'm based out of Chicago right now. I also direct a lot of children's theater. If you recognize me, it's probably from Round Barn in the area. I worked there for a few seasons, thanks to Miss Amber. She brought me in originally to direct the camps there for the summer, and then got hired on as an actress for a while. And now she's hired me to do the camps with Goshen Theater. I'm just so excited. But yeah, that's my life. Here I am. Hello.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Miss Molly.
Hi guys, I'm Miss Molly. I graduated in December with my BFA in musical theater performance from Western Michigan University. Yeah. And since then, so I'm an actor, singer, dancer. I'm a choreographer as well. I've been doing choreography work in Goshen. I'm interning at the Goshen Theater, working with the Drama Club. I'm a fitness instructor. Yeah, that's what I do.
So those are the quarantine queens, the awesome ladies, the Goshen Theater Table Talkers, and our special guest today, Mr. Paul Regano. Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I was born on the Upper East Side.
No. A little shorter.
Lenox Hill. My name is Paul Regano. I'm a musician and musical director and sometime performer and composer, half of the composing team, the Regano Songbook. I've worked regionally, sometimes at the Round Barn Theater with Amber, where I have music directed Amber and Katie. Let's see, and most recently I worked on the Broadway revival of West Side Story. And coming up, if everything, eventually returns to normal, I will be working on the revival of The Music Man as well, and various other readings and projects here in New York. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Also the recent winner of the Social Isolation Festival with the Rave Theater.
Yes,
Festival.
If you haven't seen our video, 5,000 people have. So,
yes.
Screen to Screen is the name of the song. It's on the YouTube. If you go to Regano Songbook on YouTube, you'll find that video on our homepage. Thanks.
Throw them a sub. Throw them a subscription. Why not?
Yeah.
While you're there.
This talented lady's in it. I don't know if I'm pointing to you, Amber.
If you do the other way, I bet you'll get to me. This lady.
It's Amber.
It's me. I do a little fiddling. I do a little fiddling for the tune. Okay, so I'm gonna take it over to Miss Molly. Miss Molly, we had an actual question this week from one of our GTDC students about civic theater.
Good.
Yeah, tell us more.
Okay, so our question was, so this is a question for everybody. My best friend and I do plays at school. I really want to do a civic theater play with her. She's scared to audition. How can I get my friends excited about civic theater? So any thoughts on that question?
I think that's a great question. I think a good jumping off point would be going to our last episode and having her listen to Aaron Nichols, right? Aaron Nichols, I got it right? Yes. Oh, thank goodness. Thank you, Aaron. Who is the guy who knows everything about auditioning for them because he's the one that auditions you. So first of all, prepare her by letting her watch the episode and hearing exactly what he tells her to do, because he does tell you exactly what to expect, and maybe that will help her. And then maybe if she's still nervous and she's not ready to audition, they have a lot of other programs there on the technical side of things, and maybe she's not ready to be on stage there. Maybe she wants to do tech first and get her bearings, and then next time she'll audition. maybe that's a good leadway into her auditioning for them, is getting her involved with the organization itself and feeling comfortable with the people there, and then she'll be ready.
This is something too that I really like to do. I like to gamify things. And this is something that I like to do with my friends too, like especially if I'm enthusiastic about something and some of my friends maybe aren't as enthusiastic as I am about it. I'll gamify it. So we'll try to unlock achievements. So we're going to unlock the friendship achievement of auditioning for a civic theater show together. And it makes you closer. It creates sort of a fun atmosphere with it. But like, don't be scared to reward yourself for doing something. Because it does take, you guys, it takes so much courage to do this, to get up in front of people and to say, hey, I'm here and I'm myself. And you should cast me in your show because I believe in myself. Like that takes so much courage. So reward that courage, like try to achieve, like unlock achievements, come up with stuff like maybe attending the audition or signing up for a program. But each time you guys get an achievement together, you get a reward. For me, that's always ice cream.
That was when for a time I was auditioning. I don't do it as much anymore, but that was one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was reward yourself after an audition. Because yeah, it is hard, it is scary, and it's doesn't get any less scary. Sorry.
Just kidding.
No, but the scariness, it's exciting. It's good that you should feel those butterflies every time, but that you reward yourself after makes it more, to me, I started to think like, all right, I'm just going to do this. And then I get my chai latte because I auditioned today. Little rewards. I couldn't get ice cream every time.
No. Right. Not diamonds. Like.
No. After the first 5 auditions, diamonds got a little tough to swing.
All right.
Oh, sorry. One thing that I wanted to add.
Yeah.
I think like the main difference between a school show and then a community show is that it's just a different group of people. So I think sometimes it's really easy to feel comfortable auditioning at school because you know everyone. So you sort of just have to get over the hurdle of auditioning for the first time at a new theater because I mean, if you've done a show before, you know the process of a show bonds people in a way that you don't normally get to bond people with, which is really awesome and one of the things I love the most about theater. So just encouraging your friend, like, hey, once we do this one audition, if like we have the chance to do this one show, you're going to know all of these people, and then it'll feel just like school. You'll be comfortable auditioning there, and yeah, just be prepared like you would for your school audition. So that's my final thought.
Any other final thoughts? Okay, I have one. The last one would be to think of auditioning as a chance to perform. Most of us, we audition because we love performing, right? And if we just think of this as an opportunity, it's a 30-second performance, not much at all, right? It's not like doing a whole show. So just think of it as a chance to perform. If you love performing, just go out and have fun. Yeah? All right.
Love that.
Next up, oh, it's Amber. Just kidding.
Well, I did want to say quickly about, since we're still on last week's show, I really did want to say a special thank you. My dog is barking. It's very exciting. I did want to say a special thank you to Erin Nichols and South Bend Civic Theater. If you can, they have a little YouTube channel. They've also got a bunch of classes and things over there. If there is a topic on theater, and especially civic theater, that you want to know about, they've got so many resources over there. They've got that great seminar on cold reading, which was in the description of last week's show, that they have so many resources. And especially right now, they're doing so much outreach online. So go check that out. And special thank you to Aaron for making time for us in his crazy schedule.
Yes, thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Even Paul thanks you.
Good episode.
So we had our question. That's awesome. The intro to the topic today. So we're moving away from civic theater auditions today, and we're moving toward professional auditions. We're going to talk a little bit today. Mostly we're going to talk about stage auditions, and I'll put a little attack on the end today about some on-camera stuff because I've done some movies and commercials. The real secret of it is that I'm just old. So I've been in the business a long.
Seasoned.
I'm seasoned.
Seasoned.
I've been doing this a long time. And the longer you do this, the more opportunities you have. And I'm a say yes person. So I've done a lot of stuff. So intro to the topic of professional auditions. I think that one of the things to remember about a professional audition is it's just an audition. It's just like auditioning for anything else. Auditions, as Paul said already, it's always going to be a little bit nerve-wracking. It's always going to be a little bit like scary. You're always going to get that butterfly feeling, but it's not a different butterfly feeling going into a professional room than it is when you're doing your school auditions or your civic theater auditions. So that's the number one thing to remember. But as we have in the last 2 weeks, we're going to go through sort of what to prepare, how to find auditions, what you're going to wear, what you bring, what to expect, and sort of some of the things that you will need in order to transition to working professionally. What are we going to start with? Oh, where to find auditions. This is such a good one. Okay, so opening it up to the committee. Where do you guys look when you're looking for professional auditions?
So in Chicago, a lot of people, depending on what level of professionalism you may be, because there's different levels, right? You've got people who are not union whatsoever. You've got people who are EMC, which is equity membership candidate, and you've got the AEA members, right? They're the union members. If it's a big house, if it's a union house, the AEA members are going to get looked at first.
So
right?
House, guys, also in our theater terms glossary, a house, like a union house, it's like a union theater. That's another name for a theater. And the theater union in the United States is called the Actors Equity Association. And they started back in the early 20th century and addressed a lot of things that were wrong with the way the theater industry ran in the United States at that time. So they are basically actors advocates. And when you get to a place in your professional life where you have worked with the union for long enough, they invite you to become a member of the union. And then that means that you only do union contracts from then on. So the union membership thing, for some folks, it's great. And for some folks, it doesn't make sense. Like in Napanee, it'd be hard to be a union actor in Napanee or Goshen. But in Chicago, in New York, there's quite a lot of union work in the larger cities. So if you guys want more information about Actors Equity, it's sort of an odd, it's sort of an odd thing. It's like one of those secret things that you don't really know about the professional theater, is that there are professional organizations. But you can look up Actors Equity at aea.org if you want more info on equity. Take it away.
So some of the places that we use professionally to look for auditions would be specifically in Chicago is theaterinchicago.com. That's where a lot of the non-union post their auditions, or even the smaller equity houses who are looking for non-union actors. And then you go on there, they have specific things that they're looking for, but it tells you all the information of when their auditions are and what they need from you. Another one that is universal, no matter where you're at, is backstage.com. And that you have to have a subscription to be able to submit yourself, right? Paul, are you on Backstage?
I am not, but I have used many friends' Backstages.
Who are so kind. I know the deal.
I'm not looking into auditions as much anymore as I am posting them frequently. But
where do you post, Paul? Where do you post your auditions?
Well, I mean, in the past, I have actually, when I was like starting out and I had, no money to do a production, but I wanted to do something, believe it or not, Craigslist. But for a nominal fee, Playbill is a great resource to look up or post auditions, and people at all levels of this profession in all parts of the country are posting and checking on Playbill. So that's a really great resource. And that's not just for auditions. If you're interested in being a musician or a tech director or a lighting designer, they have all kinds of jobs on there, and you can search for specific things in the region you're looking for. I love Playbill for looking up auditions. I'm trying to think where else I post. I frequently leave that to the other people who know more about that stuff. I just play the keys.
There's also, when you were talking about tech, there's also a free website that doesn't require a membership called Offstage Jobs. Offstage Jobs has a ton of tech. They also occasionally are looking for people who are actor tech. So if you're like me and you know how to sew, or you're like Katie and you work really well as a director with kids, like some theater contracts, and Miss Molly, who's a choreographer, some contracts really want to hire people with a multi-skill basis. Like when I hired Paul, I think you're over here. When I hired Paul, I hired him as a music director and a performer. When I hired Miss Katie, I hired her as a performer and a director. So I was always looking for actor techs when I was doing more casting. So there's also some listings there and places to find theater jobs just to be in the building.
I did find you on Offstage Jobs.
Yep. That's pretty cool.
I was going to add, if you're sort of in the age group of college, like a theater program in college, you're probably going to start looking for professional theater in the summer. So those are all of your professional summer stock theaters. A lot of the auditions I've done in the last 4 years have revolved around those types of theaters. So you can either, maybe you guys know what the website is, I forget, but there's somewhere online, there's a list of like every professional summer theater by different states. So if you're looking to stay in the same state as your school, or if you're looking to go all over, there's also big unified auditions. There's Midwest's, there's Ohio Theater Alliance, there's Straw Hats, there's A1s. I feel like I'm probably forgetting a lot of them right now, but
UPTA in Midwest.
Yeah,
SAT.
UPTA. Mm-hmm. You'll go to a specific location. Sometimes it might be a hotel, a conference center, a big building, and you have 90 seconds. You have a little number. There's going to be a lot of people there. You go in, you do your audition, and watching your audition are representatives from 20 to 50 plus theater companies from around the country. And then they'll hold callbacks that it's usually like a weekend in those couple of days. So you might be running around to different callbacks for different theaters in the same building. And so that's what a lot of my friends and we'd take road trips in the spring during audition season. And that's how I got a lot of my summer work too, was doing those sorts of auditions.
I think we're neglecting one place to find auditions, and we're to find like people who are casting. Facebook.
Oh yeah.
That's a big thing. A lot of theater, like especially if you've worked somewhere, you'll see like the artistic director will post, hey, last minute, I need this filled. Who's got recommendations, right? This business is so much about who you know and how well you work with others. Because half the jobs I would say that I've gotten is because someone recommended me because they worked with me somewhere else. So be good to work with, friends, and you might get work.
That's me too, over half.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories, and it was while I was doing my first job with the Round Barn Theater, that my friend was in Chicago with a tour that she was working on, and I went to see her, and I was with her friends, and they said, "So what are you working on now?" And I said, "Oh, I'm music directing for Everplatt at a theater near here." And they said, "How'd you get that job?" And I said, "Well, I found a posting, and I called them and applied." And they're like, "Oh, you got that job? You like applied for it? You didn't know somebody?" Because it's frequently, the other way around. It's really this business is so much about people skills. Be nice to work with. I would rather hire someone I like and trust as a person and a friend over someone who's maybe a little more talented than them if I don't think that they are going to be easy and good to work with.
Yeah, make friends. Make friends. That's a number one. Like maybe that's how do you get professional work? Make friends.
It's so true.
It's accurate.
And be nice at the auditions too, because I even know that a lot of theater companies, they'll have someone from their company planted in the audition room. They might even be like pretending to auditioning, just seeing how people act around each other. And they could go back to the director and be like, "Oh, so-and-so is being quite mean out there. Don't give them a job." So just, everything's an audition, but just be nice. Yeah. Just be nice to everybody.
That's such a good piece of advice in general, I think. So where are we now? Oh, Miss Katie, what to prepare?
Yes.
What do folks need to prepare? Let's start that one.
So once again, wherever you find your audition, whether it's on one of these websites that we've said or a post online, or you go to that theater's specific website, that's a great place to go and find their audition information. They're going to tell you exactly what they want to see, right? They're going to tell you, I want a 30-second monologue, contemporary style, or I want a classic monologue. Classic is going to be older styled, right? Maybe Shakespeare in there. And then they're going to tell you, I want 16 bars, which equals roughly 45 seconds of a song, right? You want it to kind of make sense. And they may tell you, I want it in the style of the show, or I want it from the show. That one rarely happens for me. Singing something from the show, not a normal thing that I see a whole lot, but it does happen. Or they'll tell you, I want pop rock, whatever it is. So later on, I think we'll probably do some form of a lesson on an audition book and what you have in your audition book. And that will answer all the questions that are running through your head right now as to what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we should definitely do, maybe episode 4 will be like what to prepare in your book, like how to construct your repertoire book. That's a great episode 4. Paul, do you want to join us for that one too?
I kind of do. I just want to do all of them. Is that okay? I just be a quarantine queen.
Your family.
Oh, you want to be quarantine queen?
A little bit.
Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see how this goes.
This is my audition.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. One of the things that I like to prepare when I'm going into an audition is a joke that I can tell just in case they ask me to tell a joke. And sometimes I'll make it on the theme of the thing I'm auditioning for, just like, you know, but I'll find a joke on the internet and I'll have a joke in my back pocket. And I'm a little quirky. I have some personality. Sometimes if they don't ask, I'll like fold it into the conversation. Like they'll normally talk to you in the audition room from across the table. And during the course of the conversation, because it is a joke on the theme of the show, I'll fold that in there to show that I'm fun to work with. So I'll sometimes prepare a joke.
I love that.
Paul, what do you like to see? Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, when they've been sitting there all day seeing the same thing over and over again from all these people, they're going to appreciate that joke, y'all.
Yeah.
It is so refreshing from the other side of the table to have someone who walks in with that confidence and relaxation. And it's so hard. It's so hard to be confident when you have those butterflies. But I mean, walk in like you've already got the job and joke with them. And it's so nice. So it's a breath of fresh air after so many people, hi, please hire me, to just have someone who you can talk to. But speaking to the 16 bar thing that Katie mentioned, as the MD and frequently doing double duty as the audition pianist, it's really important that, like Katie said, that your 16 bar cut makes sense. Don't just pick any, 16 bar chunk. And also, if it's 17 bars, that's okay. If it's 15 bars, that's fine. Find a phrase of the song, especially as you get into more recent musical theater. We're not sticking to strict 32 bar AABA song formats anymore. So you find a section of the song that's about 30 to 45 seconds that has a nice arc, a beginning, a middle, and an end, shows off a nice section of your voice. That doesn't mean you have to hit some crazy high note. If you don't sound good on a high C, don't put it in there because you think that's what we want to hear. Put in what shows you off. This is your time to shine. This is the you show. So tailor it to your talents. And please make your sheet music legible for the pianist. It's the first time they're looking at it likely. And they have to support you and work with you. It's a little bit like a duet. You're the star, but we're working together, and I need to have all the information that I can to support you. I have seen people give me sheet music where they highlight if there's a key change in the sheet music. They circle something that's a little tricky. They'll talk with me. They give me their tempo, meaning the speed that they want to play it at. They might say, I take a little liberty here. You just keep going straight through. Things like that. Anything about your cut, please be nice to your accompanist. They can make or break it for you. Give them all the tools possible to support you. I cannot stress that enough. That's my rant.
I love that.
That's
Yeah,
so
nobody
good.
wants to hear a badly sung high C. Nobody. Miss Molly, what's like one of your, what are you preparing? What do you go into the audition? What's your indispensable thing in the room?
Like what I go in with?
Yeah,
normally?
what do you prepare? What do you think is the priority for preparations?
Ooh, I think, well, it's a little bit different depending on if you're auditioning for one show or an entire season of shows. If you're auditioning for one show, know that show super well, and put yourself in a director's mind. If I were casting myself in the show, what roles would I probably play, and know those roles really, really well? Because if your audition goes well, they might even pull out something from the show right there and be like, oh, do you happen to know this song from the show? And if you're like, yes, actually I have it memorized and I've already done all of my work on this particular song, that's really they're gonna remember that. So know the show that you're auditioning for, or sort of know the vibe of the season of shows if you're auditioning for a full season. And then I always prepare, if I'm choosing the song that I bring in, which is most likely, just always the song that I feel like I could sing on any day. If my voice felt tired one day, I could still sing it really well. If my voice felt great one day, I could still sing it really well. If I was sick, I could still sing it really well. The song that you feel like in the worst possible situation would still be your best song. I always do that, and I just make sure that I have a couple of other songs ready to go if they ask for something contrasting. A couple of monologues, yeah, a joke, like Amber said. That's such a good thing to have. But that's usually what I'm preparing going into an audition.
That's great. I think Molly, you wanted to move it on to the next topic. What's the next bit?
Yeah, so now that we know what we're preparing, we have to figure out how to also deal with the nerves of the audition itself. And like Paul was saying, it'll be the same nerves no matter what you're auditioning for, just because it's always sort of the same situation. And this is sort of just repeating what we all were just talking about. But I really believe that the more prepared you are, the less nervous you'll be, because you know you've done everything that you can do. The only thing that you can really control in an audition is how prepared you are. What people think on the other side of the table, what they ask you for, the other people that are at the audition, those are all things that you can't control. So really just realize that there's only a few things you can control in the audition situation, and control them as best as you possibly can. Be as prepared as you possibly can, be as nice as you possibly can, bring everything that you need, have your extra music, and everything else is out of your control. So to help with those nerves, I would really just try and keep that out of your mind as much as possible. And just think, especially once you get into professional auditions, it's a day at the office. It's another day at work. As actors, it's our job to audition. So of course, be prepared, like I just said, but also don't overstress yourself thinking, this is the one thing that I need. Like, this is just another day at work. We chose to be actors, and this is what our job is. We don't go sit in an office, we go and audition. And then when we leave, try and forget about it as much as possible, because what's done is done. You've done your preparation, and now the rest is out of your control. So that's what I would say to help you deal with those nerves. I don't know if there's other thoughts out there.
There was from Carol Burnett, and if you guys don't know who Carol Burnett is, your grandparents do. Carol Burnett had this great thing that she would do, because she, in her early career and probably in her later career, she really dealt with stage fright a lot. She would get very, very nervous. So what she would do is pretend to be someone else. She would pretend to be someone who wasn't nervous. So she, in some of her auditions, she would like think about the character or who she wanted to be. And her big, like in her head, the big definition of a confident woman to her was Mae West. She still talked like herself. She still walked like herself, but she put on this like guise of Mae West. So she would pretend, like, if I was Mae West, how would I think right now? If I was Mae West, what would I do right now? Like, how confident would I be walking into this room? If I was Mae West auditioning for this chorus girl role in this Broadway show, what would I think of that? So she would take the example of someone who had already achieved the thing that she wanted and think of it as if she already had the thing. So she would pretend to be someone else.
I love that.
That's so good.
I've done it in non-audition situations, in fact. Like, I've gone into meetings and thought, okay, if I was the CEO of a major Fortune 500 corporation, how would I approach this meeting? And I try to think in the way that that person would think. I've used it so many times. If I was doing this interview and I was Lady Gaga, what would I think? How would I do this? Like, how would I approach this mentally?
I love that a lot. I think I kind of do that like subconsciously in some ways. Now that you're like bringing it to my attention, I'm like, is that what I'm doing?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Go in the room, be the one to beat.
Exactly. Oh, you already have this part. That's another thing to think. Like, never want it. Just go in and think you've already got it. And not like think you've already got it like this. Like, think you've already got it like, okay, this is just a step in what we're doing. But yeah, that was what she used to do. I thought that was always really fun.
That's cool. For me, I think, especially when I first started auditioning professionally, it was all about, you know, you want to show them your strengths, right? That's what auditioning is. You want to show them all your strengths and your tools that you have. For me, it was also partially, and I think everyone would agree, that it's also hiding some of your weaknesses, right? So what I used to do a lot in college before those big general auditions for UPTAs and Midwest and all those things that we were talking about earlier was we would do mock auditions, either just with our friends or even our professors would help us hold them. And we would run it like it was supposed to be ran in that particular audition, right? And one of the things that I personally struggle with is my musicality, right? Rhythms scare me. I have to work super hard on music. So talking to my accompanists so that they understand what I'm trying to do is sometimes difficult for me. So that is something that I would practice over and over and over again with my pianist in my voice lessons before I went to an audition. So I knew exactly what I was supposed to say to my accompanist to convey what I needed. And my accompanist would be like my personal accompanist that I used on the regular basis, helped me figure out what I wanted to say and how I should be saying it to a true musician, right? So I think Paul's right. That musician who's in that room with you, who's going to help you through your song, they're your partner in that. And you've got to be able to talk to them the way that they need to be talked to so that they understand what you're trying to do. And I've actually walked into an audition and they've gone, oh, I know this one. And that will throw you off. It threw me for a loop one time when it happened to me. I don't know if you can hear me. I just dropped my bud. Hold on.
We got you still.
Oh, good. I had an accompanist. I walked into an audition for a professional company that I had never auditioned for, and it threw me off. I let it throw me off. I did not do what I was supposed to do, what I had prepared myself to do. And then they played the wrong tempo and I was off and I got super nervous and I was really upset with myself. But in the meantime, I also had something better to do afterwards, right? We said, treat yourself. Mine was always to have something planned afterwards, something better to do. And that day it was to go visit my fake niece with my best friend, right? Who had just been born. I got to go play with the baby. So I think it's a combination of all the things we're talking about, right? That's what really helps me with my nerves. I think of it as a performance opportunity. I do what Miss Amber says. Like, the more I think about it, the more I think I pretend to be someone else in the room. Like, I'm still me, but I like put my mind as if I'm already like this great performer and I'm fine. This is fine. I lie to myself. And I practice the audition process, because you can practice your song over and over again, but if you are prone to nerves and you haven't practiced your full audition in the way that you're going to be doing it in that moment, you might get nervous. So practice it the way you would do it in that room with those people. Make your friends stand in on it. Sometimes the hardest thing is to perform for the people that we're closest to. If you can perform for those people, you can perform for a stranger, right? Paul, what you got?
Yeah, no, I mean, like everything that everyone has said so far, 100%. I'm gonna give two pieces of advice from my parents. One from my mother, which is basically what Molly said, and that is that the audition is all about me. No matter what, no matter who else is there, it's not about the guy in the hallway who maybe is better looking and more right for Billy Bigelow. I'm going to walk in and sing soliloquy, and I'm going to knock it out of the park. I'm going to do my best Billy Bigelow. I'm never going to get cast as Billy Bigelow. But it's just like Katie said, it's a performance opportunity. I'm just going to go in there and be the best me I can. And also about rehearsing the whole thing. You're auditioning. Some people say from the second you walk in the room, it's really the second you walk in the building. Because also, like Molly said, there is a monitor who's going to check you in. That person works for the theater company. Even if just for that day, they have access to those people and they are going to be able to give insight. And I know lots of directors that want to talk to the monitor. How was this person in the hallway? Were they nice to you? Were they nice to the other people? And then again, what Katie said, this is the advice from my father. Always, when you learn something, learn it 200%, because as soon as you walk in that room, 100% of what you know is going to fly out of your head. So you'll still have 100% capacity. I've also heard it described, and I'm a little embarrassed to admit that I picked this up from Grey's Anatomy, but we don't practice things until we can do it right. We practice them until we can't do it wrong. I think that was a really, really smart way to put it. Yeah, isn't that nice? I really like that. So yeah, in terms of nerves, like they're never going away. Use them, channel them. That is energy that is at your disposal. So put that into your 30-second musical.
I love that. So Paul, this is going to be a question like directly for you, and then we'll get some comments from the queens. So this is a like what to expect. So what's different usually between like a civic theater or school audition or a program audition? What's going to be different in the room between that and a professional audition?
That's such a great question. I know at a lot of school auditions, they will. I think a lot of schools have gotten better about it now, certainly at the collegiate level, but even in high schools, that they are now asking for a 16-bar cut and treating it sort of more like a professional audition. When I was auditioning in high school, it was show up, you don't have to have anything prepared, we're just going to give you some stuff from the show to learn, we're going to learn it together, and then one at a time we'll bring you up and sing. And that can, especially if other people are in the room, that can be nerve-wracking, other auditioners. In the professional world, again, like Katie said, there are varying levels. If you are, an equity actor doing lots of professional work regularly, you may have an agent who gets you an audition and an appointment. You show up at your appointed time, you come in, you do your stuff, you meet the people. There will frequently be someone called a casting director who was hired by the production or the theater company to help, someone who has a good eye for putting casts together. And this person will look good with this person, and these voice types will work well together, things like that. So you'll see usually a casting director and the director. Depending on the level of the audition, you might, there might be several rounds where at first you're just meeting a casting director and a few people from their office, and then they'll call you back to do it again in front of the music director and the director. And then again, you'll get called back because now the producer wants to see it. And that's a way up at the very professional level. But even at the basic level, we're looking at, you're walking in, there's a table with people behind it who want you to succeed as much as you do. They want you to be good. And if they like what they see, or if they need to see more, they will ask you to come back, do what's called a callback. And frequently there, you don't prepare your own material. They will send you something to prepare, usually something from the show. Okay, we like what they did. Now let's see specifically if they can play Marcellus Washburn. I want to hear this section of the song Shipoopi, and
that's a real thing, everybody. That's a real song.
A real song from the Music Man. Sorry, it's just the show I'm working on right now. And that just narrows it down, and it lets them see more specifically. If you don't get a callback, it does not mean you did not get the job. It just means that they saw what they needed to see in your initial audition, and they know what they need to know about you. Yeah, I think, have I covered, is there anything I'm missing? Amber knows a little bit about professional. auditions?
A pinch. One of the things I think that was surprising to me when I was first starting out, because I had done so much theater as a young person and as a student. But the first time I was called upon to do an actual professional audition, I was surprised that we were in basically a conference room. Because I was accustomed to auditioning in a theater when I was at school. I had auditioned in like a big dance studio before, like places with really good acoustics. But the first time I ever did a summer stock audition, they had rented a small conference room in a hotel to hold their auditions because they were out of town. Because with summer stock, a lot of times they're in smaller towns. So they're going to not be able to do an audition at their home theater because it's in a little town. They don't want everybody to have to come out to the teeny tiny town. So they rented this conference room, and it was surprising to me. And I was sort of shocked. So sometimes you're going to audition in an office, sometimes a conference room. Molly talked about like some of those unified auditions. You might actually be like in a hotel room. I know that sounds crazy, but you never know. You have to be able to sing your stuff, like sing your song, do your monologue in any kind of location like that. So that's one thing. Sometimes with professional auditions, you think professionals like, oh, way up here, everybody's a professional in the business. So you expect, oh, we're going to be in a cathedral to do these auditions. But they are so often in like an office or a conference room or something that's very humble and very different than what you're accustomed to.
To that point, also, just speaking of where you'll be, I know specifically in New York, they are frequently at a studio space, and you're in just a small room, like Amber said, but there is a secondary room because a lot of these auditions bring a lot of people, and there will be a secondary room called the holding room, and that's where you'll first show up. Do we talk about getting there early and signing in and all that kind of stuff? Is that valid information?
We haven't talked about any of that stuff.
So in New York specifically, and I know Chicago is definitely better about this. Sorry, New York, we're getting there. When I was auditioning, and people I know who are auditioning in Chicago now, I know that they are better about making appointments for auditions so that it never gets too crowded. But in New York, certainly in the non-equity world, there is a sign-up sheet that goes up when the monitor gets there first thing in the morning, usually around 8-ish. And that is the list, depending on what number you get when you sign up, that's when you're going to go. It could be a few hours before you get there. A lot of people will take the liberty of getting there before the monitor and start what's called an unofficial list. I know for some crazy auditions for things that people know will be highly sought after, this is insane, but I've heard of people getting there at 4 or 5 a.m. Now that's, again, ridiculous. That's not the norm. But 6 is not ridiculous. About 6 a.m., some people will get there, camp out. They'll bring, I know some people who bring their whole makeup kit, and they come there almost in their pajamas, just, I'm here, I put my name on the list. Okay, I'm going to go sit in the hallway and wait. And then while I wait for my actual appointed time, put on the full beat, run into the bathroom and get my audition dress on. Oh, we didn't talk about, we're going to, I guess.
We will, yeah.
It's down the list.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's not a great system. I will publicly denounce it right now. But there you go, off my soapbox. That's just part of the game right now.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So on that note, sort of channeling us into our next topic, Miss Katie.
Yeah, we're going to talk about what to bring to your audition, right? Number one key, resume and headshot and your audition book. Those are the two big things. The next would be yourself fully dressed. You should be there. I would bring some headphones. I usually keep recordings of my accompaniment to practice with on like my voice memos so that I can listen to it a million gazillion times, because as I already stated, I freak out about rhythms. Doesn't matter how long I have been doing the song, I will listen to it all morning until it is time to go into the room to audition. Every time. That is my thing. I just over and over. But yeah, your audition book, your headshot resume, those are the big things they're going to be looking for.
Yeah, y'all know.
To bring with you.
Y'all know I'm going to say water.
Yes, water.
Bring water.
If you're a dancer, bring every dance shoe you have, even if it just says it'll be a jazz combination. Bring your character shoes, bring your tap shoes, bring your ballet shoes, because if they finish that combination and say, "Oh, do you happen to tap?" you can say yes and put on your tippity taps and do a triple time step right there. Because they're not going to wait for you to go get it, or they're not going to say, "Oh, well, could you come back tomorrow and tap for us?" They're way too busy for that.
That's true. Paul, what do you bring?
Yeah, water is key. Because I know, again, because I'm not auditioning super regularly, I think that when I do, the nerves are a little heightened because it's like, this isn't my comfort zone. I'm on the wrong side of the table. So it's something about just having a bottle of water there to just be like, we're fine, we're good, we're hydrated. I like to bring something to occupy, a crossword or anything like that while I'm waiting, just to occupy my brain so that I'm not going down that rabbit hole of like, oh man, that guy wore a better shirt than me and maybe they're gonna get it, the usual actors worrying about other people's shirts. So something to occupy my brain while I'm waiting to audition. Definitely my book and multiple copies of my headshot and resume. And a smile. Always bring a smile.
I love that.
I have a quick question, and it's for Amber and Paul, because you guys are both musician actors, right? So when you go to those auditions, if it were to be one where you could be playing an instrument as a character, do you take your instrument with you? I know at Midwest or like UPTAs, they always told us if we played an instrument proficiently and we put it on our resume as a special skill or whatever, we should have it with us for the callback times for those individual callbacks. Is that something that you guys do at professional auditions as well? Is that something they specify?
Yes. So my most in-demand instruments are violin and guitar. Generally with piano, if they want you to play a piano, they're going to provide it for you. They'll bring a keyboard or something. You don't have to like hire a piano mover to bring your piano, because most places there's going to be an accompanist. A problem I've run into is, this is going to sound ridiculous, but being a multi-instrumentalist, because I play stringed instruments, I started playing the viola, which made it very easy to learn the violin and very easy to learn the cello. And then I had calluses on my fingers, which made it easy to learn the guitar. So it was sort of like a gateway thing. And I didn't make friends very easily as a child. So music was my friend. I was a little awkward. So I applied that time that most people spend making friends to learning new instruments. So I have a lot in the can. What I will usually ask, because all of my instruments are listed on my resume, well, not all, but the ones I feel most confident about. I have gotten questions about, like, do you play the Erhu, for example? Or do you play hurdy-gurdy? Like weird ancient instruments. And I say, well, no, but I can play all of these other instruments that are applicable to that, so I can learn that instrument. But I have an Erhu in my house right now. I'm trying to learn it.
What is an Erhu?
An Erhu, it's a drum instrument. It's got a small drum on the bottom and it's got strings. It's a bowed instrument, but it's a pulled bow. So the bow hair is on the other side of the string. It has two strings, and you push down. There's no frets. You don't make any neck contact. So you're just pushing down the string, and it's Asian. So it's sort of that, if you can think of like the scores of movies that are from Japan specifically, that sort of string sound. You're like, oh, that sounds like a modified violin. That's what it is, but it's weird. Hey, that was a tangent. So, for me, it's tough because if I were to bring every instrument that's on my resume lists violin, viola, cello, bass, guitar, mandolin, mandola, and auto harp. So I've only 4 times been asked to bring all 8 of those instruments. One of those times was in Chicago, and I had to do it on public transportation.
The worst day of your life?
It was
the worst day of
not,
your
it
life?
was not great. Well, also I had to get there. I got there, well, my first load on public transportation was 4 hours ahead of time. So I had to take the stuff there, store it, go back and get more stuff, and then come back. Then I had to tune everything, including an auto harp. I had to tune everything and then get everything set. It took me and 2 interns to get all my stuff into the audition room to do the audition. And they also wanted me to play and sing on the piano. So I had all my instruments lined up. I had my crate of music, sat down at the piano to sing my song, and I started singing, and they went, "Thank you."
I would have been like, no, you about to get a full concert today.
And I said, "Thank you for this section of this audition," or "Thank you." And they were like, "Thank you." And I was like, great. And I will not lie, as I packed up all my instruments, I cried as I was packing all my stuff up, because I knew I had to do 2 trips on the Red Line train to get my stuff back to my house. So not only did I have to, like, in shame, take all of my instruments back, I had to, like, come back to get another load of instruments.
What neighborhood were you in?
I was in, do you know, like, north of Devon?
Yeah, that's where I live, north of Devon.
Yes, I did.
Park, yeah.
Yeah, I was living on Belmont at the time. Okay, this is like now neighborhood talk of Chicago, but I was living in Boys Town at the time, which is probably, what, a 25-minute train ride?
That's right by Cheesy's.
Yeah,
right there.
It is. It is.
Amber, is that when we were neighbors but didn't know each other?
Yes,
Yes.
that was
I
when
was
we were
a
neighbors.
few blocks north of that.
So I'm sure that was the most boring thing the most boring thing that's ever been said on a table talk. Sorry, kids. But
was that more of a callback situation though?
No.
Or it was the actual audition?
That was the problem. So they were doing a season general, and they had the show Pump Boys and Dinettes on their season. So they weren't sure if they were going to have the girls play instruments or not, but that is a show where every person in the show has to be a multi-instrumentalist. So that's the challenge. They asked me to bring all 8 of those instruments. In general, I would only bring violin or guitar to an audition. And if they wanted to see more, they would have to call me back. So yeah, I bring it. I bring instruments, but not everything. And I always have something prepared on the piano. Always.
Yeah.
Paul, what about you?
With piano as my main instrument, I frequently don't have to, although I have also, not 8 instruments, but I have lugged a weighted 88-key keyboard on Chicago Transit and various other public transportation systems. I have occasionally brought my trumpet when it was called for. I have never brought it if I wasn't sure. It was usually, hey, we need an actor who plays the trumpet. Can you bring it? And both times they were resounding failures. But I brought it and I didn't bring it. Not those days. But yeah, it's for me, it's really just always, I'm just ready because I consider myself more of a musician than an actor. I'm always ready to sit down and play and sing. I know that I've done that at a few auditions where I've come in and I've done something and they'll say, now we do have some actor instrumental stuff here. Could you go through your book? Is there anything in there that you can sit and play? And I've done that. Yeah, just basically here's a pro tip. Anything that you put on your resume, especially under special skills, be prepared to pull it out at the audition. I was auditioning I don't even remember what it was now, and someone had on their resume that they did a really good Jessica Simpson impression. And we were like, great, let's see that. Because it's always, you got to break up the monotony. With whatever, I mean, I've seen really good Raptor impressions. I've seen, I can't even remember, juggling, arm farts, whatever. So she says, okay, so my impression of Jessica Simpson is basically specifically her as Daisy Duke in the Dukes of Hazzard film. And then she said, hey, y'all, not joking. That was the impression. She did not book the job. It was 8-9 years ago. I think I can talk about it, but just be prepared to, back up whatever you put on your resume at a moment's notice in the room.
I once played bassoon after my Shakespeare audition, I was like, and there was my Joan of Arc monologue, and now here's Mozart's Divertimento #1 on bassoon. And they were like, what? And I was like, you asked for instruments.
So Molly, you've played for yourself in an audition then, yes?
I have, yes.
But it was something specified.
They said if you play an instrument to bring it and have something prepared to play. And then I also brought my bassoon to UpDoes, and I didn't end up using it, but I was in a callback, and they saw bassoon on my resume, and they were like, you play bassoon? And I was like, yeah, it's upstairs. I can go get it right now. And they were like, it's okay.
That's so funny. Yeah, with special skills, I think special skills on your resume, which we're going to talk about resumes, headshots, and repertoire books next time on Table Talks. But we'll all be thinking about fun things that we have on our resumes or things that you can put on your resume to sort of help you stand out from the crowd. That'll be next time on Goshen Theater Drama Club Table Talks. It's a teaser. So we're over to Miss Molly. This one is your little topic, Miss Molly.
Yeah, so I just wanted to touch on what to wear. We talked about what to wear for different auditions within the last few episodes as well. And it's pretty much the same for professional auditions. But I guess my one tip would be to, if you're auditioning for a show or for a set of shows, sort of look at those shows and sort of like when you were preparing for the audition, what roles you might be playing, and don't dress up in a costume in that role, but wear something where the director might look at you and think, oh, I could see her in that role. So if I'm auditioning for Rock of Ages, I might wear black jeans and maybe do something a little bit edgier or wear boots instead of heels. But if I'm auditioning for Oklahoma, I'm probably going to wear just a nice simple dress and something that is more timeless. So just sort of look at the style of the show. If I wore my Rock of Ages audition outfit to Oklahoma, they would be like, well, we can't even picture her in this show because she looks like she's in Rock of Ages. So yeah, that's my one tip. And for the dance call, just really make sure you're wearing something comfortable that flatters your body and it makes you feel really good.
I love that idea of wearing something in the tone of the show, but not a costume. Like something that sort of suggests the show, that shows that you're an appropriate choice, but without being a costume for the play.
Yeah, and shows that you know what show you're auditioning for. Like, I know this is the style, and I want them to see I've done this preparation, so I'm going to show that through everything I do, and the way I dress is part of those things.
Right. I think there is a line, too, where you shouldn't cross it. Like, if you're auditioning for Taming of the Shrew, don't think, aha, the tone of the show is that I should wear like something. I'm going to wear velvet because this is a Shakespeare play, or I'm going to wear a corset or whatever. Like, if it's crossing a line into something you would wear on Halloween, then maybe don't do it. But for a Shakespeare show, it would be appropriate to wear a longer dress, I think, or something like that. Like, yeah, something in the tone, but within the modern palette of clothing. I think that's smart.
Yes.
I love that.
We were always told to pick jewel tones to wear. So like I always choose purple because purple is my favorite color. And I feel like strong in purple. But what I do is like I'll pick a purple dress or shirt or whatever to wear in my audition. But then I also have a purple leotard, and it's kind of a throwback. Hey, remember me in my original audition? I'm wearing the same color so that you remember who I am kind of situation. Just another random thing.
Brand consistency. Yeah, I have a friend who worked in marketing and did brand consistency across all of his materials. So his headshot, he did some graphic design on the back of his headshot that matched a particular palette, and his shirt and his headshot was in that palette. He would wear clothes in that palette, and then everything he had, including his audition book, was in that palette. His water bottle was in that palette, so that like everything was brand specific within a color palette. And it was memorable for people. So it was like, oh, the teal guy. Yes, we remember. So yeah, brand consistency. And that's, again, remember last week we talked about type a little bit. That's like knowing your type. But having something like that where everything is branded across your brand, including like your website graphic design, if you have like different videos or things that are part of a portfolio, having consistent graphics, consistent design, consistent colors, that's another thing. And that can go into your wardrobe, I think, too.
Yes, and more than I think the consistency, speaking to consistency also, wear, if not the same thing, something very similar to your callback. Because if I'm behind a table, I'm seeing hundreds of people a day. And if I say, oh, I love that woman in the yellow dress, and she comes in wearing burgundy the next day, I'll probably still remember her because she has a number and a name. But
at the end of the day, you don't want to go, where's yellow dress?
Right. Absolutely. Also, I think I love that from your book to your water bottle, to have that brand consistency. It not only implants yourself in my brain as this is the teal guy, but it tells me that you put work into this, that you will become prepared to whatever you're going to do. It shows me a level of professionalism that I know I want to work with.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to quick talk about a couple of like special on-camera notes really quickly. And then we actually had a member question, you guys, for the panel this week. Katie's got that for everybody, but I'm excited. I'm excited about the answers to this question because I got to see it before we started. So on-camera auditions are special. If you guys are looking for on-camera work, often on-camera work has to go through an agent, but wherever you are, there are commercial agents and TV and film agents wherever you are, because most people have locations where they're filming. So even major motion pictures, but there's also independent films, there's student films, there's stuff like that. So do a quick internet search in your area for people that might be representatives. That's the really good way to get into on-camera work. And sometimes, you know, just make yourself open to it on Facebook. Like say, hello, friends. Like, does anybody know of anybody in the community who needs some on-camera talent? I'm trying to get more experience on camera. When you're doing an on-camera audition, they are going to tell you exactly what you need to do. Remember, we talked last week about sides. We talked about like, what is a side? And it's like an excerpt from a play. Well, for on-camera work, it's exactly the same. They're going to send you a side. And sometimes it's going to be, okay, we need you to act like this. We need you to do 30 seconds of stubbing your toe. I've had that as a side. Like, give us the emotional journey of tripping on the street. So sometimes it won't even be words. They'll just want to see you doing something. Sometimes it'll just be based on your photograph and they just want to see your face and what you can do. But everything, the most consistent thing in on-screen auditions or camera auditions is a slate. So sometimes you will have to slate in an on-stage audition. And what a slate is, it's basically you say your name and you say, if you're represented by somebody and it's on camera, you say, my name is Amber Burgess, represented by Beautiful Burgess Inc. And this is an audition for this piece. So you will do that slate at the beginning, or my name is Amber Burgess, I'm number 859, and I'm reading for Pretty Girl on Bus, literally once. I did a commercial where I was Pretty Girl on Bus. So obviously. So they'll tell you what you're auditioning for and what your slate needs to contain. The slate is the hardest part, standing there and saying your name and what, because it has to be so specific. So practice your slate in the mirror. And I don't generally say you should practice anything in the mirror ever. But for a slate for an on-camera audition, always practice your slate in the mirror, because you're going to have to look into an eye of a camera in order to do your slate. So look yourself in the eye in the mirror and say your slate over and over and over again. Because flubbing your slate is the first sign of bad things at a camera audition. In an on-camera audition, you're going to be in the room by yourself, usually with a tech person for the camera. And you're generally not going to be seen by the director in person. They're going to see you on camera only. So it's a little bit less nerve-wracking, but it feels like less of a thing. So bring the energy that you would bring to a regular audition, because you don't have an audience at all. It's just a camera. But guess what? In on-camera shoots, you don't have an audience at all. It's just a camera. So bring that same energy that you would bring. So slating, and they're going to tell you exactly what they want, whether or not it's text. It's not always consistent. And then sometimes your film audition is just going to be them taking a photo of you with your name on a piece of paper, and then they'll group you, especially for extra work. I did an extra job for a movie that was like a Showtime movie back in like 2001. I know. But all they did for that audition was take my picture with a Polaroid camera and ask me to show up in a dress from the 1980s. That was it. So there's a lot of ways to find those auditions. Most of them are just through agencies or through people who are looking for on-camera talent in your area. But yeah, Facebook is a great place to look. And then also chatting with folks to see who, if you know people who have done on-camera stuff, who their agent is, and if that agent can get you in touch with someone in your area. But yeah, go through agencies and reach out to independent filmmakers. But yeah, that's on-camera work. I think the other thing to say about on-camera is that there are, as young people, there are safety concerns with on-camera work. So if you are doing an on-camera audition, always bring someone with you, like bring your parent, bring someone that is like a coach or something like that who can wait in the waiting room for you. Always make sure that you're in a public location for an on-camera audition. And if someone is asking you for an on-camera audition from home for you to do like a self-tape audition, just make sure that you're not putting too much personal information into that self-tape from your home. So safety first, that's number one. But this is also, there's a lot of on-camera opportunities for you. And it's something that I didn't get into until I was in my 20s. But always make sure that you are with your parents, you have your parents' permission, or that you are with somebody, even as an adult, that you're with somebody and that you are like being as safe as possible, and always have your safety in mind with on-camera work. I know that's a big upper, right? Memorize your slate and be safe.
Amber, technical question on that. You said when they're slating, they're looking straight into the camera. Where's their focus when they're doing their readings?
That's a really good question. It's straight into frame unless they tell you otherwise. So the audition that I did where I had to stub my toe and have the emotional journey of stubbing my toe for 30 seconds, that audition, I was pretty focused on my toe. So that one, they didn't want camera contact, but they told me that. Other auditions I've done have been for things like industrial film, where I was presenting an idea about material safety data sheets, actually. So you'll find the material safety data sheets here in the safety station next to the emergency shower and eye wash station. Like that was direct address to camera. So they told me, hey, we need you to address this to camera. Sometimes and this is a good indicator, you're going to be straight into camera, unless it's something where you're not talking to anybody. But if there is a scene partner, address that slightly off camera. And I would do it slightly off, like toward the person that you're acting at. Because if you're in a scene acting, you're not going to address that directly to camera, except in very specific circumstances. If you have a question about it, if it's a scene and you're not sure, ask the monitor, ask the person who's there taping, because they've been taping everybody. It's their job to do it right. So if that person who's doing the taping doesn't do the taping properly, then this day was a waste. So they're going to know exactly what needs to be done to be successful for the taping. So ask them, say, hey, should I direct this at the person I'm reading with? Should I direct it at camera? Do they want profile, 3/4? Like, always ask. But in general, if it's presentational, straight into the lens. Fun.
Great. Are we ready to move on?
I think so.
To our big question.
Oh, I'm so excited.
So our member question for the panel this week is, what was your first professional job and how did you get it? Molly, do you want to start?
Sure. Okay, so I sort of have two answers to this question because I actually, when I got into theater, I originally got into theater professionally as a child, but then also once I decided to do theater as my career, there's also my first professional job once, I was actually an actor. The dog!
Thank you.
my first, when I think I was 9 years old. We've all talked about the Round Barn Theater. Since I grew up here in Goshen, my parents, who are wonderful people, knew that I was interested in music and theater. They're both wonderful musicians themselves, and so I think, yeah, the first show I did was Fiddler on the Roof, and they just had an open casting call because if you know the show, there's 5 daughters, and the 2 youngest daughters should be actual kids. So my parents took me to the theater. There were a ton of girls there. I couldn't tell you what we did. I don't remember it at all. And I remember I wasn't really nervous about it because I wasn't expecting to get it. And I wasn't like one of those kids that was like, I have to play Bielka and Fiddler on the Roof when I was 9. And then I just remember, like, I think my mom came and talked to me one day and she was like, hey, Molly, the theater called and they put you in the show. And I was like, cool. So, and at Round Barn, the shows run for about a month, and it's professional actors. And so I showed up, I rehearsed the show, and then every day after school, my parents would drive me to the theater, and I did the show every night. I went on to do many shows there. One with Miss Amber.
Well, I was in Fiddler too, Molly.
Oh, right. Wait, you were the fiddler, right?
I was the title character.
So my first professional show was with Amber, which was wonderful. And then we went on to continue working together. I was Amaryllis in the Music Man when she was Marion. I think they kept me on to do 3 other shows. There were a couple of shows where I was double cast with another young child because we were young children, and doing, 8 shows a week for a month is a lot when you're 9. So anyway, that's how my first experience with theater was actually in professional theater, which that was an awesome experience. And then, so I did some summer theater programs. I did theater in my area. I did theater locally. And then I went to Western Michigan University and started auditioning for more professional summer theaters. The first summer stock gig that I actually got, well, because I auditioned and because I had connections to the music director at the theater. He was also my accompanist and coach at Western. But the summer before I was an actor, I played keyboard 2 in one of their pits because it was a theater that I already had my eye on. It's the Barn Theater in Augusta, Michigan. I really like performing in theaters that are barns, apparently. But yeah, so the music director, who I already knew, reached out and was like, we're looking for someone to play keyboard 2. And that's not something that I normally do, but it was something I had the skills to do. And I really wanted to work at that theater as an actor, so I said, yes, I will do it. And so I got to know the family that owned the theater. I got to know everyone. And so when the next year rolled around, they knew who I was. They remembered me. I had the recommendation of the music director, and that's how I got that gig. I went on to perform there for 2 summers, and I did 2 of their Christmas shows. So yeah, that was my first professional job as a real adult.
Paul?
That's, first of all, it's such a great foot in the door story, Molly. I love
Thanks.
that. I guess my first professional acting gig, I was also pretty young. And my friend, one of my best oldest friends, Brett Fox, follow him on social media, I don't know. He was doing a lot of professional work as a kid. He had his equity card when he was like 8. He was doing the Christmas Carol at Madison Square Garden as young Scrooge for a few years running. So he had been working with a group playing Christopher Robin in a Winnie the Pooh stage adaptation, and he couldn't do it and recommended me, and I didn't even audition. So I don't know. I mean, that speaks to the it's who you know thing. But then it was about 6 years later, my first professional music direction gig, the elementary school that I had gone to was doing Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And when I went there, I had played Willy Wonka in that show 4 years prior. And they knew that I played piano, and they needed a piano player. And so they asked this 15, 16-year-old kid to come play the piano for the shows. And I was hooked. And then since then, so that was my first professional, I guess. My first professional gig doing what I do now, which is a lot of music copy work, which that's its own table talk. That's a whole thing. that was again who I knew. I knew someone who worked in the box office at a regional theater in New Jersey, and he said, "Hey, this new show. It's a new musical, and they said they needed a music assistant. Isn't that kind of what you do?" And I said, "Yeah, that's definitely what I can do." And he said, "Yeah, it's a new show called Be More Chill, and I can put you in touch with the people who are doing it." And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I'll email with Joe Iconis a little bit," and that led to a long working relationship with Joe and with his shows. And so again, it's always about being good at your job and being nice, not in that order.
Amber?
We already actually talked about my first professional gig, which was that summer theater when I did Midsummer Night's Dream, if you guys remember. And I got that job because I was doing The Miracle Worker at the time. So the director of that show saw me in The Miracle Worker and said, "You, redheaded girl, Annie Sullivan, I want you for my Shakespeare play." So I didn't audition for that one. But my first full-time professional job, when I was in college, I did summer stock a couple times. I did a few summers in there where I was living somewhere full time and like making a paycheck. So I've done summer stock and some of that stuff. But when I left college, I moved to Cincinnati and I did songwriting, I did music directing, I did costuming, I did violin lessons. I was doing everything that I could in the fine arts to make a living as an artist. And I was always in a show. And most of the shows that I was doing were semi-professional shows. So I was getting a stipend of like $600 to $1,000-ish at the end of a run of a show for 2 weeks of work. So it's a good amount of money, but it would come as a stipend. It wasn't considered full professional theater. So I did that for like 4 years right out of college and really built up my resume. I also did some like full-time professional work in there a little bit, but they were all temporary contracts. But I stayed within the Cincinnati area. But I transitioned out of that to be a full-time traveling actor who did nothing other than acting and music with no day job. I transitioned out of that at like 24. And it was because I got a job at Alaska Cabin Night Dinner Theater. And the way that I got that job, it is like a long chain of events. I had auditioned on the Showboat Majestic for a director named Isaac Turner. His shows were brilliant. I was a fangirl of his production of Shenandoah. Like, I had a crush on everyone in that show. Loved it. But he was such a great director. I wanted to work with him so badly. And I had done auditions for him and just not gotten cast. So he did this production of Where's Charlie, where I didn't get cast. And I was like, you know what? You guys have a live pit orchestra. I'd love to play in your pit. The music director was like, well, we don't have a cellist. So I played cello in the pit for Where's Charlie. Isaac and the music director were best friends, and I made friends with the music director through that. So we started hanging out. Then he was casting a show the next time called The Human Comedy, which is a through-sung Galt McDermott folk opera. That I think it ran on Broadway for 7 days. So they were doing a production of that. He cast me in that show. And Isaac, every summer, would go to this Alaska Cabin Night gig. And through working with him in Where's Charlie and Human Comedy, he was like, Amber works hard. She could handle 5 months in the wilderness. Let's go do this. So through that job, literally every other job that I got through my career was through knowing somebody through that first gig. It is crazy how it is just a chain of people, even like getting to be seen or getting into an audition. It all happens because of the things that you do. So even if you think, oh, I'm doing this humble show in these humble circumstances, whatever it is, that's never the case. Wherever you are is an opportunity for greatness. And it's an opportunity to show who you are as a person and how you work. So that's the trajectory of everything that I have done, like in a line leading to today, happened because I decided, you know what, I'm going to not be prideful and I'm going to play the cello for Where's Charlie in this pit orchestra. So you never know what opportunities are going to open up from taking those gigs. It's the longest answer to a simple question.
No. So my first gig was with Tent Theater in Springfield, Missouri. They are connected with the university I went to, Missouri State University. They are an equity house. And that was my first gig that I ever got professionally right out of college. Like I was graduating and like month before got the contract. I was ecstatic. I did 110 in the Shade. I was in the ensemble. My name was Mrs. Jenkins, I do believe. She's just a mom. She's a mom. Because I am a mom. That's what my life is. So yeah, I did that. And then I also, at the same time that I booked that, I also booked Great Plains Theater in Kansas, in Abilene, Kansas, through UpDoes. Through UpDoes is where I got that gig. So as soon as I ended with 110 in the Shade at Tent, I went straight out to Great Plains. And just like Miss Amber, like literally from then on out, it's basically been a domino effect, because I went back to Tent another time. I went back to Great Plains a second time because they liked working with me. At Great Plains, I met Michael Redondo. Michael Redondo was the one that introduced me to Amber and recommended me as the camp director position while I was just finishing up a tour with Prairie Fire Children's Theater, which is how I know how to do my camps, was because of the tools they gave me. And then Amber, through Round Barn, I met one of our stage managers who actually recommended me for my first Chicago big theater job. And so like, she was like, you need to submit for this. And then she kind of pushed me through, and I ended up booking work in Chicago for this amazing show that was so silly, but so fun. And I got to work with Martha Wash, who was like one of the, It's Raining Men singers. Yeah, best time ever. And then, you know, like now I'm here with Goshen Theater doing camp stuff because of Amber. So like it truly is just like what Amber just said, like literally would not be where I am or have the people in my life that I have had I not made the decisions or booked what I booked and worked the way I worked. And people liked me enough to recommend me. So that's why I really do believe if you are a good person who has talent but works hard, because that's the true thing here, right? Because hard work will beat out talent every time. And if you are a hard worker and you're good to work with, you will find work. It may take some time, but if you hold out, you keep working, put in your work, put in your dues, you will figure it out somehow.
I think it's so interesting how every one of us has gone back to the idea that it is who you know. And I feel like you hear that so much from naysayers and cynics. Oh, the show business, it's all about who you know. It's not really. But in this context, every one of us who has talked about it has said it in this really positive light. And it's not this cynical, oh, you have to be connected. It's all who you know. It's really, I look at it more as show business in general. It's about a bunch of friends who want to work with their friends, you know? It's just about spreading positivity and this abundance mentality. And that, you know, if I light your candle from my candle doesn't get any dimmer. It just causes more light, you know? I think that's such a beautiful thing that we can all be like, yes, it is who you know. And isn't that great?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It is when you know cool people.
And luckily we all do.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this call. So on that note, that is the end of our show for this week. You guys, that was awesome. I think next week for episode 4, what we are going to focus on is sort of the actors' resources. What do actors need in their toolkit in order to do these auditions? Like, what does a headshot look like? When do you need it and why? Resumes, what you should put in your repertoire book, and sort of what kind of songs you should sing and stuff like that. I think not only is this great for professional folks, but it's kind of fun to learn all of that stuff with like just to learn new music and learn new things. So I think that's what we'll talk about next week for episode 4. Paul, do you want to join us again for episode 4?
I would be delighted, honored.
All right. From your Quarantine Queens and your special guest, Paul Regano and the Quarantine Queens.
That's our title now.
We should make a
Yes.
If we make a true podcast, that should be our title, the Quarantine Queens plus
featuring
Paul Regano.
Paul Regano.
I love
The
it.
Paul Regano trio.
Also, Paul, you should write a show called The Quarantine Queen.
I was thinking we have directors and choreographers and MDs all in this chat, and I was like,
Sure.
what 3 woman musicals are there? And I was like, well, I guess we just have to write a Sunday on the Rocks musical.
There you go.
And perform it over Zoom.
I feel like we always get a great show idea in the table talk.
Yes.
That's trademarked. No one can steal it. Again, it's in development. So we will see you guys next Friday. Thank you so much for tuning into Goshen Theater Table Talks. From all of us to all of you, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, friends.
Bye.